So what's it like
So,
collaborating
yeah.
together?
I mean, it's a really strange kind of, how can I say, like solitary collaboration. I mean, it's a really kind of paradox. I mean, usually what happens is, of course, nowadays with multi-tracking software and MP3s and file sharing and all that, it's just incredibly easy to do this. But usually John just sends me an MP3 of the guitar track. I load it up, listen to it, jam on it on my own, come up with things, record things, and then mix it down and send it back to him, and back and forth, and then as the song grows that way, we give it to Jason. He does the same thing. Give it to Aesop. He has electronic drums.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sort of slowly emerges over time in this weird piecemeal fashion. We've never really have jammed
Right.
as a band. It's something I'd like to try to do, jam. Come into the practice room with a riff, but we've never done that. I'd like to really, really try that. But yeah, it's a weird, like I said, solitary, but it's still collaborative.
Right. So, being from the West Coast, how do you think the area you guys live in affects the atmosphere in the songwriting?
I mean, the area. I mean, I think fundamentally it's always been a major inspiration in terms of the aesthetic and the imagery. Whether it affects the music directly, of course, John would probably answer differently than myself. Because when I'm writing a guitar riff for Agalloch, I'm not really thinking in terms of images or nature too much. I'm usually a little more traditional. I'll think in terms of keys and chords and modes and scales, and then we usually talk in terms of images as the song slowly emerges. So for me personally, musically, to me, it's just I'm in my room with the lights off or something, and I'm just on it. I'm not looking out the window at the Mount Hood or something. But certainly, nature's a big influence in terms of lyrics, in terms of ideas and imagery and aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and it's a beautiful area.
It sounds like it. I'm probably hoping to head out there this summer just to experience it, because apparently it's really cool compared to the East Coast where I'm living currently.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the huge mountains and volcanoes, and
Cool.
you're near the coast and Columbia Gorge. I mean, yeah, it's
Sweet.
don't live anywhere else.
So as far as the lyrical themes go on the new album, how would you say they've changed compared to previous Agalloch releases? Obviously, the album's taken a more darker approach. Do you think that's reflected in the lyrics as well?
Yeah, I think we've always we're all somewhat morose individuals. We all are fascinated by subjects, existential subjects. Of course, John, he writes all the lyrics, so I can't answer for anything directly about them. I mean, I think his lyrics, particularly with Ashes, had gotten far more concise, far more matured, I would think. And I think this album I like even better lyrically than the previous. I've always found his lyrics to be very evocative, very suggestive. A term we've used to describe our music a lot, but very cinematic. And it suggests images and impressions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always really liked that about his lyrics.
Mm-hmm. Do you make any lyrical contributions?
No, I mean, I came up with the title of the record, but I really leave that all to John. I mean, the only thing that Jason and I pipe in on with regard to titles, is like album titles. Like an album title, all of us have to agree on 100%.
Uh-huh.
But John, I let him, he does his thing. I don't ever butt into lyrics or song titles. But album titles is something we all really want to have 100% agreement on.
Mm-hmm. How do you think the title of the new album reflects its unifying theme?
It's unifying. I don't know if it reflects its unifying theme. The title really came from a couple different places, a couple different very strange places. Fundamental one was from Thoreau's Walden. I think it's in the second chapter. He talks about the reasons why he went to the woods, and there's some sort of passage I'm paraphrasing. I went to the woods to live deliberately, and not to find out that I had not lived or whatever, and I went there to suck out all the marrow of life. And that phrase, marrow of life, stuck with me, and the word marrow stuck with me. A few weeks before I reread the book, I had bone marrow for dinner, and I was really impressed by this huge bone that had been cut in half, baked. There was this strange gelatinous substance that you scoop out and put on like bread or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, just really interesting to me that inside this hard case bone there was this stuff. And so I was kind of fascinated by marrow in a number of different ways. And marrow of life, there's too many like literary clubs and forums and things that use that phrase, and it was a little too close to Thoreau. So then it became a matter of, well, marrow this, marrow that. We knew we all agreed on the word marrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the simplest was the best, so we settled with marrow of the spirit.
Cool. So you teach English in Seattle, correct?
Correct, yeah.
How would you say that affects the band? We covered how your studies have, developed some of the themes of the songs and such, but, does it affect the band at all, other than that?
You mean like it affects the band in terms of like tours?
Yeah, just like having time other than your workload.
It works positively in the sense that, school breaks are usually pretty long, and since I'm on salary, like, it doesn't matter if I'm gone for 2 weeks during the winter. It's not like I have to ask for time off. But it does limit you to those periods, because it's, I can't get like a substitute or something. So it's limiting in that sense, but it's also very opportunistic in others.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have to ask for time off. I don't have to lose money, to go on tour. Like this tour coming up, it's only like a week. But even other tour possibilities, like during spring break, I usually have 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
Against some salary, it's really easy for me.
As far as your connection with students has any of your students been like realize that, whoa, my English teacher's in this underground black metal band?
Yeah, a few. There's the University of Washington. There's a heavy metal club of undergraduate students, and they found out I was there. And I've had students take my class because of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
They need a certain credit, so they think, well, I'll take it from the guitarist of Agalloch. It's never been like any interruption or any weird.
Yeah.
I had one guy come in this quarter who sat in on my class, and he was like just a really huge fan, and he just came in and sat in. We were talking about Pulp Fiction. He'd watched Pulp Fiction for that day, so I was lecturing on Pulp Fiction, and we were to have a discussion on Pulp Fiction, and he was there, I think, and then after class he came up and told me how big of a fan he was.
Oh, that's really cool.
And how he then felt like he had to go see Pulp Fiction. I said, well, yeah, of course, it's a brilliant film.
Cool. So as far as your current touring plans, you have a West Coast little tour coming up next month, I believe?
Yeah. Next month, right.
Yeah, just talk a little bit about that, who you're touring with, where you're headed.
We're touring with an Austrian group called Allerfeeling. And they've been around for a very long time, very prolific. Kind of linked with the whole neo-folk scene, particularly the European neo-folk scene. They're coming over. I think they're playing a few extra dates, but we're playing Portland and Seattle and LA and San Francisco. And we select all the bands that open for us. We want bands that we like and that we think our fans should listen to. So if people come to the show, they should really come, know where to catch all the bands, because it can be a guarantee that these aren't just some local bands that got thrown on here by some promoter, but these are bands that we believe in, and we felt like we'd like to give them the opportunity to have exposure to our fans.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we try to sometimes tour with very different bands, different sound, different genres. Keep that night interesting.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any plans for like an East Coast tour?
Nothing's totally official, but we're working on that for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we're really shooting for, spring. But yeah, there's no booking. There's nothing official, so I can't say for sure. But we are totally doing everything we can to have a significant stream of dates on the East Coast.